Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to the FTN Fantasy Baseball Podcast. We are running this live here again between week 20 and week 21 of the fantasy baseball season. Unfortunately, baseball season is coming to a close, but there is a lot of activity, a lot of action coming off the MLB trade deadline, and of course, a lot of the fun recent call-ups and lots of baseball news. So here to cover it with you for the next hour plus is my man Mike Mager. Mike, how are you?
Doing well, bud. Good to be back on with you. Yeah, there's a lot going on these days. A lot of
Yeah,
call-ups.
a lot of call-ups. It's crazy. We're going to go through it all. We're going to help get you set for 15, 12 teamers, everything you need. Maybe go over some players that are easy drops, some of the more tougher drops. So I know you're doing well, but you're not doing as well as the Boston Red Sox, right? Like nobody's doing as well as
Who
them.
is? Yes. Yeah, hottest team in baseball. They are playing great, like really solidifying their spot in the playoffs. And yeah, they're hot. I can easily see them passing my struggling Yankees and climbing up into second place soon.
Yeah, it's close. Obviously, the Rays are still winning that division, best record in the American League. But that American League East is really kind of the creme de la creme in what is kind of a weaker AL than usual. But the Boston Red Sox, are on an insane stretch. They've won their last 8 games. Their record over their last 36 is 31-5, which is absolutely insane. And I just saw something that came across my feed that their BABIP over the last 30 days is 546, which is the highest stretch for a team in the history of any 30-day period.
Wow, that's incredible. Yeah, the Yanks are struggling now, but you could easily say that the three best AL teams are in the AL East with Yankees, Red Sox, and Rays.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
Not really seeing a team that the National League's going to be scared of in the AL Central or West right now, but still time.
It feels to me. I mean, we'll kind of go over these the leagues, the divisions, wild card races, but uh, and maybe it just has something to do with the fact that the Dodgers are 2-8 in their last 10 games, and I don't know, and of course all the PCA stuff and the Cubs, Brewers are crushing it, but even though the odds are very high, like after the Dodgers acquired Scooble, I believe their percent chance of winning the World Series went up to 41%, which is just obviously insane. And most sharp bettors, you take the field in a case like that, especially when it's high. There's just so many teams, anything can happen. But I mean, does it feel to you like a bit more of a wider open race where there are a lot of teams that could potentially just get hot and get there to the World Series, potentially win it?
Um, yeah, I think so. I mean, it seems like the best teams are in the National League, really. I mean, you could make a case that the Dodgers, Brewers, Braves, and even Cubs might be the four best teams in baseball. And then, you get to the playoffs and you have, these shorter series, and I don't think you can easily write off the Phillies with Sanchez and Luzardo and Wheeler is a very formidable, top three of their pitching staff. So yeah, I think the Dodgers look to be the best team on paper at least, but I would take the field moving forward. But it's tough to imagine like any American League team being favored against any of the National League teams in the World Series right now. But we'll see.
Yeah, I mean the Red Sox. It's an interesting group, a team that's been obviously surging at this level, but yeah, they've been without Trevor Story, who was one of their better hitters last season. I mean, they're being fueled by guys like Caleb Durbin, who was one of the worst hitters over the first month and a half. I mean, he was dropped in all formats. They moved up a guy in Sadan Rafaela into the two hole who couldn't walk to the park. And all of a sudden, he doesn't really matter because he's getting it done. I mean, I think he had 4 home runs against the Dodgers in that series in LA. He just looked insane, and they can't figure out really their leadoff spot. I mean, they had Mickey Gasper, quad A guy, at the top of the lineup for so long. Then it was the Anthony Siegler era. Now it's Nick Sogard. Like it's weird. And they got Jaron Duran and all kinds of drama with him. You've got rumors flying. I mean, this whole the X Twitter world of stuff, like this whole Reddit world, Reddit subworld, where a guy says, "I know for a fact." I don't know if you read or saw this, that there's this Roman Anthony and Marcelo Mayer have beef. They were best friends, but either they had a fight over a girl, or Marcelo Mayer was sleeping with Roman Anthony's sister. Like all this gossip, and people just run with it, and it's absolutely crazy. But yeah, the Boston Red Sox are a lot of the talk of Major League Baseball right now.
Yeah, well, I think they're doing it on the field, so credit to them. Yeah, no, every day it seems like they're scoring plenty of runs and getting clutch hitting. So yeah, it's a lineup that maybe you could say is without any superstars, but it's pretty formidable. And they're getting like you mentioned, Durbin, Yoshida's starting to play more and hit. They're getting some really nice contributions from Monasterio at shortstop. I mean, it's really the whole lineup is contributing. Kind of long. I think had a big homer the other day. So yeah, they're getting it done.
Yeah, and obviously our friend Jason DuPont is loving every minute of this. I know he's going to all the games, high stakes NFBC player Jason. But it seems to me like the Red Sox are just in my feed more than ever. Maybe just a lot of Jared Carabas and people responding to him and this and that. But the one thing I about what was it? I was just thinking about this. There was a new thing that came up today. About how the Red Sox, ironically, have been doing much better. Like this turnaround happens to coincide with them parting ways with Driveline's Kyle Bodie, who was doing some consulting work with them, and then someone else they let go from the organization. And all of a sudden they're going off. But it's never just that cut and dry, right? I mean, there has to be other things, factors we don't know about.
Oh yeah, I'm sure there's a lot going on behind the scenes. But over the last several years, their pitching development has been super, and they're just getting a tremendous season from Sonny Gray, and other guys are contributing. The bullpen looks solid lately, so yeah, I think it's a team effort.
What do you think about? Is there a big advantage of having such a southpaw heavy rotation? 4 of their 5 are lefties, and it's been a pretty good run for them.
Yeah, I don't know, and you would think in Boston it would not be really, because it benefits right-handed hitters, and then they have the Green Monster. So you wouldn't think in Boston it would, but it certainly makes things interesting for us fantasy players, because when you set your weekly lineups, that's one of the first things you always check. You check to see who's playing in Sacramento, who's playing in Colorado, and from Cincinnati. And one of the next things that I'll check is what platoon bats are playing the Red Sox, because it's definitely a unique rotation.
By the way, yesterday was I think arguably the craziest game that we've seen. It was the White Sox and Red Sox, Battle of the Sox. I think it was 13-12 at the end, but the White Sox took the lead like 5 different times. In the middle of that game, I guess, or later in the game, Eric Miller, who is a new Boston Red Sox, screwed over a lot of us who picked him up last week as a closer for the Giants. He hit new White Sox backup catcher Joey Bart in the hand with like a 97-mile-per-hour fastball and fractured it. So just a random kind of side effect of last night's crazy game.
Yeah, I guess Bart's gone, at least for the foreseeable future.
Yeah, Edgar Quero just keeps climbing back in there. So, as far as this, the rest of the American League, you've got the White Sox really surging. They're up 3 games on Minnesota and Cleveland. Minnesota and Cleveland both made some additions at the trade deadline. Of course, Minnesota is losing Joe Ryan to the IL. Cleveland really looks like always strong pitching. The hitting's been boring for quite some time, but guys like Chase DeLauter and Travis Bazzana have been basically everything is advertised so far. So this is a really good race. I wanted to ask you how you think it shakes out between those three teams.
Yeah, I mean, I think the White Sox are having a great season, especially, thinking back to where they were. They were horrendous last season. I don't recall their record, but I think they were like the second worst team, maybe the worst team in the AL, I think, only
Yeah, I
behind the
think so.
Rockies. So it's been, whatever happens from here on out, this is a huge development year for the White Sox, and they look like legit, and they're on the ascendancy. Um, the Twins, I think, are having a really good season. I mean, remember they were big sellers last year. They sold their entire bullpen, I think, and then they started the year with Pablo Lopez being out for the year with an injury, and I think we expected them to be horrendous, and for them to be around 500 is, quite an accomplishment. That said, I can see the Twins kind of falling out of it moving forward. I just think there's too many injuries, too many holes, too many losses to bear. The Guardians, I would probably be my pick to win the division right now. I think if I had to make one, I do like what they did. I mean, these aren't huge moves. The Guardians don't spend any money, but I think it was a real nice boost. They got J Ram back. They added Joe Adell. They added Nate Lowe. They brought up a really good looking rookie, Angel Janeo. I'm
Yeah,
good.
Janelle.
Apologies for
I want
screwing
to call
up.
him Genoa Salami, but yeah,
Yeah, it's not
Janelle.
that. But yeah, I like what they're doing. They had a tremendous run last year, so you never know. But the one team I would not count out, which you didn't mention, but is right there too, are the Tigers.
Yeah,
The
they're
the,
hot.
the Tigers are hot, and it's kind of a misleading stat. But when I look at say run
Yeah,
differential, every team in the AL West has a negative run differential. The best run differential in the American League is the Yankees at plus 81. The second best is the Detroit Tigers at plus 80. And
hmm
then the Red Sox plus 77, and the Rays are only plus 41. So the Tigers, at least by run differential, you would think would have a much better record than 3 under. And everyone's ready to write them off with the trades of Skubal and Mize, but they keep winning and they're hitting well. And I think they found something in this. Troy Melton looks fantastic. So
hmm
I think it's going to be a pretty interesting race. I could see the White Sox, Guardians, and Tigers fighting it out. I think the Twins do fall back, though.
I'm with you absolutely. That is a good point about the Tigers. Yeah, that run differential is quite high. They've been surging lately, and obviously losing Tariq Skubal is a big deal. But like you mentioned, Troy Melton has been unstoppable. Kiter Montero has a huge difference between his ERA and his underlining peripherals there.
Yep.
But he's been getting the job done as well. And then Framber Valdez, it's funny, as soon as Skubal's gone, he's like, I am the ace now. And actually has a good start. And they got Jackson Jobe coming back. We'll talk about that. He's going to debut on Saturday. And then Drew Anderson, pitch count's been low, but he's like an NFBC darling. I feel like people are always trying to scoop him up, hoping for something good out of him.
Yeah, he can look very good in short stretches. I think I kind of need to see him get to 5 innings and maintain that effectiveness. But you never know. I mean, that was kind of the concern with Jax on the Rays. But once he kind of got up to 5 innings, he was off and running.
Yeah.
So certainly could happen with Drew Anderson.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously, I don't expect much from Jack Flaherty, even if he does when he does come back. He's not something I've been big on, but eventually, I mean, Reese Olson will be back next year most likely. Jackson Jobe now, coming back. I mean, this isn't a bad squad, and then of course the offense doesn't look all that bad either. I did mention last week in one of my articles about how the Max Clark hype, like, so I don't know about you or where you were with this, or maybe you should have given me a heads up. Hey, Vlad, you're way too low on your Max Clark bid range. But I did not expect for people just out of the woodwork to come out and spend 100 on average. I understand people have some money left. You kind of one big push, but I was looking at it. I was like, okay, Max Clark does seem like he's going to be good, but there are limitations in that ballpark. He just had the series of his life in Sacramento of all places, and then the next 2 weeks they're going to these not great parks. Like, he's just going to cool off. I mean, it's just the way it's most likely going to be. So I didn't know like where those bid ranges come from, but then in hindsight, when you look at it, it all does start to make sense.
Yeah, I mean, I think some people, still had a decent amount of money and looking at he's the top prospect. A lot of teams looking for hitting, gives a little power, a little speed. So I understand the bids. I was lower, didn't get him anywhere. I was mostly 40s, 50s, I think, and maybe one or two teams where I had more money. I was in like the high 60s. That was as high as I got, and I didn't roster him anywhere.
Yeah, I mean
Yeah. But they,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, yeah. The other thing is for next year, we'll see if this Zaire Hope is good, and if he's healthy, River Ryan could be a very effective
Mhm.
pitcher, especially in that park. So the the haul they got for Scooble might be helping them next year.
Yeah, I mean it's not the sexiest of lineups, but obviously you adding Kevin McConaughey this year, who's the front runner of the AL Rookie of the Year race, and of course Dylan Dingler, like on his way to possibly 35 home runs. He's been incredible. Riley Green just solid as ever. Spencer Torkelson as volatile as ever. Just for first round pick, first overall pick, you just can't get going. And at some point, you hope Kerry Carpenter gets going. He's been dealing with plantar fasciitis, which obviously can really take a lot out of you. So hopefully he's back sometime in the next few weeks and gets going. So I really like this team. I feel like the X factor on Minnesota is September Royce Lewis. So every year, or at least last year, Royce Lewis just goes on a tear, stealing bases, hitting home runs. But obviously, it takes a lot more than just one guy to get going. But I really like Cleveland. Cleveland is really the team I like best because of the pitching staff, the mix of hitters there, and they added Nathaniel Lowe and forget someone else. So it's a fun
Adele,
race.
yeah,
Adele, of course.
yeah. And now if J-Ram is in fact healthy, I could see him having a big close to the season. Yeah, it'll be a fun race.
And Joe Adele, I read something how just like he was like a little kid, energized. Like you pretty much kind of been playing in the minor leagues your whole life. It's like your only life is the life of the Angels world, right? And then you go to a team like Cleveland, different organization. Now you're in a playoff race, so he's pumped. I know he has his struggles, or his, massively struggles against right-handed pitching, but I don't know. I think he's going to help and contribute to that team.
Yeah, I would think so. They made some nice moves, and I was a little surprised they sent Manzardo down, but Nate Lowe is a good pickup for them, I think.
Yeah, he's been really good. So there's your AL Central. AL West, kind of boring, of course. You got the Astros there up top, just a small little lead on the Texas Rangers, and then Seattle right behind them. And then in the NL, of course, you got the Braves sort of running away with that division. Philadelphia Phillies most likely going to get a wild card spot. I think it'd be kind of shocking if they didn't. The Dodgers and the West is kind of boring. You've got the Dodgers there, and then maybe one of Arizona or San Diego sneak through. It's all kind of close there. But really, it's about that Central Division. You got the Brewers leading the majors and have the best record in the majors. Cubs are just incredible, red hot. The energy there when the Dodgers were playing them in Wrigley was just insane. It just, for me, just on TV, felt like a playoff atmosphere. That team is always scary.
Yeah, I think that's probably the only chance for like a real divisional race in the NL is the Brewers and Cubs. Brewers are just so solid, though. The Cubs are going to have to stay hot and take it from them because I don't see the Brewers collapsing. But both teams are really formidable. You have I think probably five very good teams. The Phillies are underperforming, but I'd be surprised if they don't have a little push of their own.
Like that rotation for Milwaukee is just nasty, 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 nasty. Like Kyle Harrison was supposed to be a big prospect. We expected big things from him in San Francisco. Then he went to Boston and Milwaukee, despite a little bit injuries that he's dealt with this year. He's just been phenomenal. I think he was pulled like dehydrated or something in his last start, and I thought, oh man, it probably didn't go well. And then I looked up the game, and it was like one hit in 5 innings with 11 strikeouts. I mean, you got him. You've got Cy Miz, Logan Henderson, who, man, like, I mean, where's he? He's going to be a top 100 fantasy pick next year, right? It's a great team.
Yeah, I mean, he has that upside. I don't know. I tend to do a poor job timing his IL stints. I tend to pick him up shortly before he goes on the IL. But yeah, he's definitely got the capability. Yeah, it's a solid team that plays strong defense, strong fundamentals, and they're aggressive on the base paths. It's just a really well coached, well managed team.
That's great. Yeah. Do you I know we're in front of lots of people here, but let's be real. Outside of maybe the Red Sox, since you are a big Yankee fan, I know you like to keep things neutral, but like, are there any fan bases that maybe on Twitter, X, or anywhere in the world that kind of like annoy you, where you kind of like the team less because their fans won't stop chirping?
No, not really.
Oh my God.
I can't think of any. No, I mean, as a baseball fan, I would love to see anybody but the Dodgers win. I mean, I am very pro player in terms of these labor issues. Can't stand many of these owners, and everyone just blaming the Dodgers for killing baseball when so many teams have the ability to spend more or make trades, and they're just not aggressive enough. And I would love to see a smaller market team, win the World Series and just blow up all these, kind of fake arguments by the owners to try to gain public sentiment. So, apologies to you as a Dodgers fan. It's not the Dodgers. It's not the Dodger fans, but it's more. I would love, for kind of the the labor relations and what we're going to see this off season. I think it'd be nice to see someone other than the Dodgers win this year.
I mean, you could call me, Dodger fans could call me a fake Dodger fan if you want, but I've been a fan of theirs since a kid. But I'm also very understanding of all this as well, and I want there to not be a long dispute. I want baseball to continue, and I was really hoping the Dodgers weren't going to get Tariq Skubal, even though it was most likely going to be the case, because I didn't want another sort of notch in the owners or in this dispute argument, right? And so, do you think the Dodgers winning it will add to that as well? Most likely, like delay things, or it just is what it is.
Yeah, I don't know, and I really don't know if public sentiment really has any impact on the actual negotiations. No. I mean, I don't think they do. I mean, the MLB is just on this press tour, and they're kind of blaming the Dodgers and the lack of a salary cap for all the ills, when a lot of it is just very wealthy teams that are just refusing to spend, who are not scouting players as well, who is not developing players as well, who are not running their teams as well, who do nothing in free agency. I mean, there's a lot of, again, my opinion, a lot of bad owners out there, and they're kind of blaming the Dodgers' success for problems of their own making. So I'm not very sympathetic to that argument. I do fear that there's going to be a lot of effort trying to sway public opinion, but in the negotiating room, it probably means little to nothing.
Let me ask you this about the we're gonna talk some players and some fantasy and some FAAB here in a minute. Last thing about your Yankees and how they've been managed, and of course sending down Jason Dominguez and Anthony Volpe. I've always been right about Volpe apparently, and I'm sorry to my fellow Italian American friends. It's not that. Again, I will preface or not preface, but stamp it with I was born in Italy, so I think I can have a little bit of say, even though I'm not Italian. Maybe not, I guess. But you were right about Jason Dominguez. Yeah, it just looks just very bad. Just everything with his defense specifically, right? And that's a big deal. If you're on a team like this, you can't. There's no DH spot for you, buddy. So can't play defense. Got to go back to AAA. It's unfortunate, but it is what it is.
Yeah, no, I mean it's a poorly constructed team. In terms of the pieces don't fit all that well together. But yeah, I mean you have to be able to at least play a competent outfield defense if you're gonna, get playing time in this team. And honestly, it's the same thing as with Volpe. I mean, you could take a low average with some pop and some steal, but you really can't sacrifice good defense at shortstop. I mean, that's a premium position on the field, and Lombard is just a fantastic defender. So it's encouraging to see the Yankees bring him up, and he's looked really good from the start in terms of the glove. But yeah, I mean, you look at some of the better teams in the league are strong defensively, especially up the middle. Yeah, I think sometimes the Yankees would be better served trading a lot of these prospects because with all the hype they get, it's tough for them to live up to it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, and that's perfect segue into the hefty shortstop prospect pool that has now occurred because you've
never ending.
George Lombard Jr. was called up, has had a nice week so far, seems to be fitting right in. Of course, he's a Yankee. There'll be a little bit of a tax there in FBC. And then you've got Kalen Culpepper, who is obviously a very big prospect for the Twins. He gets the call, will replace Ryan Kreidler at shortstop for them as they make a push for the playoff race. And then Angel Janeo, who is shortstop eligible on NFBC, doesn't have an outright position, but all three of these guys are shortstops. And people might have a tough decision, especially in 12-teamers. In 15-teamers, you can always make room for somebody like this. But in 12-teamers, before getting into them too deep, is there like a cutoff point on if you're looking at the 12th team, guys that are 100% rostered, but haven't been all that great, maybe a Willie Adames or an Ernie Clement, or is there one of these guys you like so much that you would take it over a consistent, a consistent major leaguer who's 100% rostered?
Yeah, that's tough, and you're probably asking the wrong person because I tend to hold on to guys way too long in 12s. Yeah, I mean, I think it depends what you're looking for. I think all of them might be worthy of being picked up, whether you're making a big drop for them. I guess I want to see. I'll take until Sunday to decide. Janeo, to me, looks really good at the plate from what little I've seen, but my concern with him is I want to see if they get him in the lineup every day. You'd like to think if he keeps hitting like this, they'll make room for him, but they're pretty set at second, third, and short now with J-Ram back.
Yeah.
So I don't know if they're going to give him DH time. He has not played the outfield from what I could discern in the minors, at least not in this past year. So that's kind of the one thing I'm looking at, is to see if he's going to be in the lineup every day, because his bat was intriguing. Both Lombard and Culpepper definitely have 15-team relevancy and value. I'm not sure yet on the 12s. But I would think that both are up to play. We just heard about Culpepper, but I mean, over Kreidler, that seems like, a pretty easy move to make for the Twins as they push towards a playoff spot. The Yankees, Lombard's their top prospect. I can't imagine they're bringing him up and wouldn't play him every day at short. I mean, he's their best fielding shortstop. So with those guys, I think you can be confident in everyday play. I think if you told me all of them are going to play every day, Janeo looks like he might have the most intrigue to me on a fantasy upside, but otherwise, I think I'd take Lombard.
Yeah, there are a lot of similarities, at least from a fantasy standpoint, because they're all guys that had at least 10 home runs, 10 stolen bases in the minors, and between 75 to 95 games played, but not necessarily. They're heavier on the runs than the RBI for the most part, and they're not guys that necessarily project for massive pop in the majors. At least not early on, but stolen bases. These guys can all run. They're all plus walk rate guys. And as far as strikeouts, the only guy over a 20% strikeout rate in between the three was Lombard. But Kalen Culpepper was a first round draft pick, as was Lombard. And all three are about a year apart each. So Lombard's 21, Culpepper's 23, and Janeo is 22. So for me, a lot of times comes down to the projected playing time. If there's a clear role for them, as seems to be the case with Culpepper and Lombard, they seem like a little bit of the priority. But Janeo had that 4-for-5 game, 4 hits in his MLB debut, which is I think tied or set some Guardians record. A rookie record, but I mean, if that infield is set, where is the playing time and how do they force it? That to me is the big question.
Yeah, and he hasn't been running a lot in the minors. He had like 11 stolen bases, which isn't bad. I don't think any of them are. Certainly, Lombard isn't a big runner either. The one thing I did notice, just kind of looking at what they were doing in the minors, is that Lombard and Culpepper have like a roughly 11 to 12% launch angle, whereas Janeo in the minors was a 5.4 degree launch angle. That tells me he's a ground ball hitter. He's not. I think he might have a little more challenge, kind of finding power in the majors, and that's kind of a really rough assessment too, but it's over time. But that's kind of the challenge that we face in the fantasy world, is these guys get called up and we get to see them for 3 days or something, and then we got to decide how much of our FAAB to blow on them. And because if you don't get them this week, they're probably gone. Mm-hmm. So all we can do is kind of look at what they did in the minors, read up on them, and kind of make playing time assumptions, but it's really tough to do after a couple of days.
Yeah, and it's really, I mean, it's tough as is with big leaguers that we've seen around for many years to be able to project them for start sits in an upcoming week if the matchups are kind of average, right? If there's no there doesn't seem to be an edge. They're not going to at Angels and at Athletics for a bunch of games, and it's just a sort of muted matchups. It's hard enough there, let alone with rookies where there are just so many more elements. It's their first time up in the big leagues. Like, we go off of what we've seen over the weekend, and unfortunately, it's just part of the FAAB business. It's like, what did you do this weekend? Because we don't have a lot of data points to go off of outside of what we've seen in the minors. So if Lombard and Culpepper might be close as of now as far as an average winning bid, let's say they're both around $35-$50 or something like that, if there's people even have that much left, they're going to take away from each other, and especially if we think Janeo is going to stay up too, they can't all be 60 plus dollar bids, but what will come down to the difference maker will be how they perform this weekend. Culpepper comes up and say him and Lombard are close, and he hits 3 home runs over the weekend. That's going to surge him way up in the average winning bid range. That's for sure.
Yeah, and I mean, it's so funny too because it's, the recency bias in FAAB bidding is just enormous. I mean, everyone jokes about it as the Sunday tax, and you have a big game on Sunday, it can have a massive impact on what you go for in FAAB, and it's just kind of ironic, I guess, or comical because like of all the sports, baseball, the small sample sizes mean the least probably. Just the fact that we'd be so influenced by one good game or 10 at bats in this sport. And you gave a good example too of you also even have to look at the context. They hit a home run. Was it off of a lousy pitcher or a good pitcher? And you mentioned, I think when we were bidding on Max Clark, he came up and had his first series in Sacramento. I think you mentioned, which definitely impacts how he's going to do, or potentially. So, yeah, it's really tough to do it. But if you don't recognize the Sunday tax when it's there, you're not going to get the guy either. Because even if you don't think you should be increasing your bids, others will. And so, if you want the guy, you got to do it yourself.
Yeah, and I understand it's like a longer term thing. Like you're not just looking at the next 2 weeks, but the Max Clark thing. It's like, okay, he's going from Sacramento against some of the worst bullpen, one of the worst bullpens in the majors, very shady rotation, even though if they were on another team, probably would be a lot more, enticing. And then you got 90 plus degree weather in that ballpark. It just all makes up for the perfect storm. And then he's coming off of that to Seattle against those good pitchers, to San Francisco, which mutes power, of course, and then the Guardians and the White Sox, who have Parker Messick and Sean Burke and Bybee's been pitching well. So it's I understand you still have 7+ weeks to go, but in the short term, like you are sacrificing maybe a good outfielder that you have for Max Clark in these matchups coming off a real high point. So again, I'm just kind of beating on the horse here, but just wanted to kind of point that out.
Yeah, no, it's a good point, and we're not, but we're not even kind of bidding on players to roster for like an entire season. I mean, there's only going to be like 7 weeks left, so to some extent, we're trying to catch lightning in a bottle.
Speaking of catching lightning in a bottle, let's talk about some starting pitchers, starting with the 15-team group, because there are a lot of them. We've had a lot of guys that have been, that all, I guess, had TJ or elbow or just, massive, issues, hadn't pitched in over a year, and now they're back, all coming back around the same time. We had Wisniewski last week and some others, and now this week we've got Jackson Jobe and Cody Bradford. Jobe is going to make his debut on Saturday. Obviously, very highly regarded prospect prior to his injury. In the beginning of last season, I think his helium was really gaining, and then when he actually pitched, the results weren't all that great. Obviously, he was hurting, so we're going to give him another chance. I think he can obviously still be a really good pitcher, but how do you compare the two from a bidding standpoint? Cody Bradford, of course, had the reconstructive elbow surgery. He hasn't pitched since like late 2004. He came up a little quicker than I thought. I thought it was going to be another week or two, but he was making minor league appearances, rehab appearances, and then he pitched a few days ago and looked really good. I mean, Cody Bradford is not he's not a power arm. He's more of a crafty lefty, and it works well in that park. But he threw 70 pitches, through 4.1 scoreless innings, through 50 of those for strikes, and no runs allowed, 5 strikeouts, a couple of walks in that inning. Bradford's going to go have a little bit of a tough set of matchups. He's at the Angels. It's not the matchup; it's more the Heat or maybe Mike Trout going off, and then you got at the Athletics. So those will be his 2 starts next week. We're going to see Job in San Francisco this weekend, and then next week home against Chicago, the White Sox. Job, by the way, looked really good in his 5 minor league rehab starts. Had like a 17-4 KBB in 17 innings, a low ERA, under 2. But his last pitch count was 69 pitches. So between the two, do you think Job's brand name will carry a heftier FAAB price? And what's your outlook on these two for the rest of the season?
Yeah, it's tough to tell. Coming off of a long injury, I'm not, and neither one, all that established. I think I'm kind of tepid on both in terms of I don't see myself making a big bid on either. If I had to, though, I guess I want to dig into Job a little more, to be honest, and see how he looks. And again, but I did like Bradford kind of a couple of years ago, pre-injury. He at least has demonstrated that he can get major league hitters out consistently. I mean, to some extent, maybe it's smoke and mirrors. I mean, it's like a sub-90 fastball, maybe, or not a hard tosser at all. But he's deceptive and he gets the job done, and he does. He will strike some guys out. So probably that would be my lean among the two. But I'm not. I don't know. I guess I'm also somewhat skeptical that Bradford can just come up and he'll be healthy the rest of the year. I'm not sure about that either. So I guess I'd say slight edge to Bradford, but I'm not super high on either.
Yeah, I feel like at this point in the season, if you're going to be, so if you're in the mix and you're competing in a 15-teamer, let's put aside 12-teamers, because I don't think either of them are 12-team ads. In a 15-teamer, if you're picking them up either for bench depth, bolster your rotation, see how they look, and hope to get lucky, insert them in their lineup. But most people that are actively bidding, have money, and are hunting for a top 3 spot, most likely have a strong rotation. I don't want to put a blanket statement around that, but you usually have set players that you're pitching, and most sharp players aren't going to on a whim. Oh, let me pitch Cody Bradford over, I don't know, like a Kumar Rocker single, where one of those Bradford starts are in Sacramento and he may not go 5 innings to get the win. So that's the sort of thinking that I want to go through. Like, what spot in my roster does he have? What's the outlook for this week? Will I even start him? And then, potentially the rest of the season is there's less to go off of. We don't even know. In fact, if he does struggle, like he is a guy that had been moved to to middle relief before when they had a surplus of starters, and we know that Jordan Montgomery is going to be back at some point. There's no roster spot for him right now, right? Or I'm sorry, no starting rotation spot for him right now. Then you've got Jack Leiter at some point comes back, maybe in September, and so that makes it even tougher to go there. Whereas with Job, I think I like Bradford maybe for the rest of the season a little bit more, but Job I feel like has more chances to have that rotation spot for the rest of the year, and a little bit more like upside, right? Like where you can have those big outings that are actually helpful for your fantasy team, but with more risk for blow up, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I think when I look at it more generally, if you have to look at the matchups. I mean, probably going out 3-4 weeks. I mean, a lot can change, but you kind of want to get an idea who the matchups are. And to me, that makes a big difference. I mean, you could like pitcher A a little bit more than pitcher B, but if pitcher B has much easier matchups that you feel safer throwing them, that's going to be the target. I think also, what do you need? Right now you should be focusing more on categories than ever before, and so are you looking for wins, or are you looking for ratio protection, or are you looking for strikeouts? Like I don't think either one of these guys has shown high strikeouts, at least in the majors. So I'm not sure either one of them helps you there. Wins. A lot will depend on what type of team you have. How good is the bullpen?
Mm-hmm.
on the team. So those are just some of the things that I would look at in trying to kind of develop leans between different options.
And you mentioned Drew Anderson already. He is going to be added in a lot of teams. He does line up for a 2-start week. It'll be against division rivals Cleveland and the White Sox. Both should be home starts. His pitch count's low. I mean, he threw 42 in the last outing. Very unlikely to go 5. You'd have to get really lucky to squeeze a win out of him. So to put Drew Anderson high on your priority list is more for depth security and hoping that in the last 5 weeks you have a guy that's ramped up to 75 plus pitches and is helpful and can help your ratios, get you some strikeouts. So I'm all right on him. Some other guys not necessarily interested in. You got Max Scherzer, Daniel Lynch the fourth, not David Lynch as I originally wrote in our outline. He's moving to the rotation for Kansas City, who's just absolutely strapped. Poor team, just injury after injury in that rotation. And then Zebby Matthews is back, the ghost of Zebby. So there's that.
Back to haunt fantasy managers worldwide.
Man, it's been rough. Like legit for 2 seasons was the best KBB guy in the minor leagues, and just the control was just ridiculous. It was like Kirby-esque, and yeah, he's tough to deal with right now. But outside of those, let me just bring up 4 rookies that have 2-start weeks, and let's kind of talk it through and see how we can prioritize these guys. You've got Andrew Painter, Mitch Bratt, Gabriel Hughes, and Ryan Johnson. I do think Johnson on the Angels, he's going to get Texas, Kansas City at home this week. I feel like I'll kind of break them down and you go ahead, but to me, it kind of feels like the lowest priority of the bunch. Andrew Painter is going to get at St. Louis, at Minnesota, assuming he's okay. He had a hamstring injury, is day to day. He had the 2nd worst ERA until he got sent down in June or July, I forget. In the majors among qualified pitchers, it was like 7+. It was just him and Michael Lorenzen, I believe. So he's got those 2 starts. Mitch Bratt and Gabriel Hughes are very intriguing. Bratt, he actually may just have 1 this week because Michael Soroka may be back. But if Mitch Bratt gets 2 starts, he would get the Rockies at home, which is always really nice, and then at Atlanta, which is a little scarier. But he is coming off a massive 9 strikeout, 7 scoreless inning, 1-hitter against the Padres. And you got Gabriel Hughes for the Rockies, who he typically wouldn't be part of a conversation, but he gets a road 2-start. He's had a nice KBB in his few starts, got rocked by Tampa, but a lot of teams do. So those 4 guys, Painter, Bratt, Hughes, and Ryan Johnson.
Yeah, and this may not age well, but if I had to put gun to head, go with one, I think I'd go with Painter. And the reason is I think he's looked a lot better since coming back up. He's pitched well, I think, in 2 starts. The team, it's the best of the teams you mentioned behind him. He should get plenty of run support, good bullpen. So I think if I had to, and he has the prospect pedigree. He definitely struggled mightily when he got called up. But sometimes, correcting a pitch mix can have a big impact. And I think I would go there. If you're looking for strikeouts, Ryan Johnson maybe has some appeal against 2 weaker opponents at home. But all these guys are huge risks to your ratios. And I think you just got to be careful. I don't know. I can't bring myself to roster a Rockies starting pitcher. It's that limitation has served me well over the years, and I don't see enough here that I would break it for him.
I already have him on a main event, but it's not a main event that's going to win place. So I'm rolling him out there. So just
there you go.
Fun, just something
Good luck.
For, even though it doesn't matter. Yeah. It's funny because Mitch Bratt's the guy that I like the most. Like I made a case for him before his when he became available for FAAB, and I put my money where my mouth was because I added him on my main event teams, and my one that's it's in the mix hurt bad. It was really bad, but I liked his profile, pedigree, people like that word, drink. But I really liked him, kind of lefty, and he showed it the last couple of starts. So unfortunately, the ratios got banged up. I've of course since dropped him, and it's the story as old as roto time. As soon as you drop a guy like that, then he goes off.
Has his best start, yeah.
But also, it's even for a single at home against the Rockies, I think
Yeah.
that's doable. I think he's in the mix. I don't know if we shouldn't be spending double digits here. I agree. Gabriel Hughes, same thing. There's no reason to chase him because it just lines up perfectly for him as far as the matchups are for two road starts. Like you mentioned, huge ratio risk, but he's a quick drop after that. So I think you got to knock it down a few dollars because you don't really need him after that. So, but Reed Johnson,
Yeah,
Reed Johnson.
I probably should have been clearer, I guess. To some extent depends what your intentions are, what your hopes are. I mean, are you looking for a guy that you could start next week that hopefully, you know, you can keep in your rotation, or is this a pure stream and you're, ready, willing, and able to drop them after a week? I mean, like use as an example, like I'm not starting him at home anywhere, and I mean, maybe, you know, I think at Arizona is pretty risky and at San Francisco can be, but at least it's, at least he's outside the courts. If it's a pure stream, I can understand it, even if I let others do it and, and don't partake myself. But I just don't see any kind of use for him after that.
Yeah, and I agree with you. I think Andrew Painter is the top guy there, especially if you're comparing him versus Gabriel Hughes, and you're looking to get lucky with a win, maybe two. It's very rare, by the way. It's like 8 to 10% of two starters. I've been tracking it all season. About like literally 3 out of the 30 or so two steppers every week will get you 2 wins. So it's very rare that you get those 2. But Painter gives you a much better chance because of the offense and the backing. Like Colorado just doesn't win games, even in Hughes' games when he was up. I mean, he's still like 0-3 or whatever it is in the 6 starts. Painter, if he gets 5 innings, you're in St. Louis, you're in Minnesota. Those are winnable games. Those are it's worth the risk. So Painter makes the most sense, assuming his hamstring's okay.
Yeah, and assuming that his improved performance after the call up is legit and not a mirage. I mean, if he's showing signs of reverting back to the way he pitched in the beginning of the season, he becomes an easy cut. But at least if the improvements stick and are real, then I think then you have like an asset you might be able to use most weeks moving forward.
From a couple of the other names I mentioned, I know it's still early in the weekend processing. FAAB period weekend hasn't even begun, but between Max Scherzer or waiting for Daniel Lynch to build up, the rookie George Clausen gets the Rangers at home this week. Robert Stock, by the way, had a really nice start home against Washington. He's got a great story. And Hunter Dobbins, who might line up for a 2-start, kind of scary. He's been good, but when he's been up for spot starts, but home Philly at the Cubs, if it works out that way. By the way, RIP those Quinn Matthews shares.
Yeah.
What a bummer. Supposed to get Rockies at home, and instead he goes to the minors, and he did nothing wrong.
Yeah, that was a quick demotion. Caught me by surprise. I didn't get him anywhere, but yeah, and I mean, among those guys, my initial reaction is D, none of the above. But I guess maybe I'm kind of at least curious to get my eyes on Klassen, which I haven't had a chance to. I think maybe he has some potential at least, and a home start against Texas, who does not seem to be hitting well. Maybe has some appeal, but I don't know. I'm not. Stock has been a really good story, and he's pitched pretty well. But I'm staying away from the Nationals, even on even in a start at home. And I don't like those matchups for Dobbins at all.
Yeah, I don't like him either. Blake Tidwell is another guy on the map. He's probably going to line up for a home two-step against the Astros and the Rockies at home. He's coming off of a start where he pitched 5 innings at Texas a couple of days ago. 100 pitches he threw, gave up 6 hits, 2 runs on 6 hits, a walk, 3 strikeouts. Is he in that mix for you?
Yeah. Actually, he, if I remember correctly, I was kind of tracking him, curious to see how he looked, and I think he gave up the runs like in the first inning right away. Got hit, gave up some runs, but then settled down nicely, which I kind of like to see. And I saw his matchups aren't that bad either. So yeah, he would be. That seems more appealing to me than a bunch of the other names you rattled off before.
And Quinn Matthews, by the way, will likely be back for a spot start. And it doesn't mean you have to necessarily hold him. But not this week 21, but the week after, week 22, the Cardinals are going to play 8 games, including a doubleheader on that Monday at Cincinnati. So most likely Quinn Matthews will be up for that. Quinn Hughes, a hockey player, sorry, not the mistake.
Yeah, something about spot start at Great American seems risky.
Yeah, unless they bring out the TJ Friedel, Var Johnson lineup. We'll see.
Yeah, never know.
12 teamers. Just some names. I know you focus on 15, but you know the ilk of this group of pitchers. Just want to throw out some guys that are available, mostly widely available in 12 teamers, but that are potential for. Let's just assume. Just the standard fare of your goal is you want to get more strikeouts for your strikeout categories, get lucky in wins, not get your ratios blown up. I was going to bring up 5 names for you and just let's rank them. Let's figure out how people should prioritize them. The first is Noah Cameron. He is the least available in OCs. He's only available at 18%, so we can maybe almost essentially toss him out of there. But he was my top recommendation in 12s last week. Stepped up and had another nice gem. Yeah. I even mentioned it to you. I'm lucky I grabbed him, but I messaged you. I was like, hey, I think I really want to get Cameron. He's available in the main. And I got him for $20. I was pretty stoked about that.
Yeah, no, that's a good price. He's been pitching much better of late.
Yeah, he gets the Dodgers and the Angels, so the Southern California, hope he's not a party guy and goes to, bars and stuff kind of guy. But 24-6, hope they have curfews. 24-6 K to walk rate over his last 24 innings, just 1 earned run allowed in the last 24 innings. A little bit there about how he started calling his own pitches on the pitch comm. A little bit of a difference. I don't think it explains everything, but I think he's similar to Painter, right? As far as like the early season results to what is happening now, but a lot more elevated. Like Cameron has been phenomenal.
Yeah, he has. And, I don't think folks should be avoiding the Dodgers entirely. I mean, they're not hitting that well. They're not playing that well, but it's still at Dodgers. I mean, maybe it's better because Cameron, I'm pretty sure it's a lefty, right?
Yeah.
So, that's better, but there's still a real risk there. The Angels should be a nice start. They should be, the Angels don't look good these days, and they whiff a lot, it seems like. I think they might have the highest strikeout rate in the majors, if I'm recalling.
In the Rockies, I think.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think if you're prioritizing strikeouts and you're willing to take some ratio risks starting Cameron at the Dodgers, it's certainly a viable 2-step.
Yeah, I'm looking at
I like Wesneski. I picked him up in a couple of leagues last year. I think he has pretty good stuff. I think the Astros are starting to play better. And at San Francisco, home Seattle is a pretty good 2-step. So I'd be willing to throw that. every time you kind of like dig into Bryce Elder, you're like, I don't want that. But then he goes out and pitches really well at times, and this is one of those times where he's rattling off pretty decent to good starts. And two home starts with the Mets in Arizona, I'm certainly comfortable throwing that. The Mets without Soto just don't look very dangerous. And Arizona can be very hit or miss. Yeah, you mentioned Jacob Lopez, two starts at Sacramento, so that's maybe the biggest ratio risk of these, perhaps. But he's also maybe the highest upside in terms of strikeouts. Although Tampa, I think, I'm not sure if they strike out all that often, but
No, no.
I think, but he can have some big strikeout games. He could also get blown up, but I'm not too scared about Texas at Sacramento. But the Tampa game is probably one I would try to shield my eyes from if I'm starting him. But again, if you're prioritizing strikeouts, it's viable.
Yeah, the Tampa Bay Rays, their active roster against lefties, they have a 17.8% strikeout rate, which is second lowest in the majors. The Diamondbacks strike out the least
Oh,
against
okay.
lefties. As far as Cameron, you were talking about the Angels, and I like looking. If I'm going to Fangraphs and I'm searching team stats or anything, there's a little icon there called Active Roster, which I think is important to click on, especially if you're doing DFS or betting or looking at a matchup for the week, because if you don't click that and you're looking at rates, you could be thrown off by players that aren't even been injured for a long time or on the team anymore, because those are just cumulative annual stats. But
Good tip.
the yeah, but
Yeah.
the left-handed strikeout, the team striking out the most against lefties as far as current roster is the Orioles, 27% strikeout rate
Wow.
against lefties. The Reds are up there at 26%. Your Yankees are there at 26%, and then the Giants and Angels and Rangers.
Good to know. Yeah, that's a really helpful pointer.
So the five, yeah. So those five. I mean, let's throw Cameron out of that mix. He's the highest roster. Probably will go for the most. But there's Jacob Lopez. You mentioned the home two start. By the way, that guy over the last four starts, he's back to being good. Lopez, two earned runs or less in each of those starts. A 17-3 K to walk rate. Usually the guy walks a lot of guys. He hasn't been lately. So you got Lopez with that home two start. You got Bryce Elder, 3 wins in his last 5 starts, and ERA around 1. Home Mets, Arizona, Diamondbacks. Hayden Wesneski, you mentioned, at San Francisco versus Seattle. And then the fourth guy in the mix is NFBC love child poster boy Dean Kramer. He's available in 57% of OCs. He will pitch for the Twins, his new team, with a home two start against Baltimore and Philly. Where does he mix in for you on those 4?
Yeah, probably a little lower. I've picked him up from time to time, and he has not looked all that good to me. Kind of disappointing. I think if prioritizing strikeouts primarily, I would rank Jacob Lopez top. If prioritizing wins, probably Bryce Elder,
Yeah.
and probably ratios too. To be honest, with Wisniewski kind of more in the middle. Um,
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I think for me also, I'm always scared Jacob Lopez, and then if those two starts were on the road, give me Lopez among all those guys probably first, especially if you're okay in wins. For me, it's close between Elder and Wisniewski. I feel like the next step for me beyond this, if I like the two starts similarly, would be to look up to the next projected matchups and just kind of knowing that both teams could provide win support for them, but basically Elder would likely run into the Brewers the following week, and then the Dodgers after that. So maybe that's a deal breaker unless I'm potentially cutting him after that, especially in a 12 teamer. You take the Elder two step. If it goes well, great. Cut your bait, move on. Wisniewski may not necessarily be a hold either, but he would then get the Athletics at home the following week, and then at the Mets. So that also isn't
yeah,
isn't too shabby.
yeah, no, that's a great schedule.
my last pitching question for you. You may even be in this position. Say you don't really need strikeouts or wins, and but you don't want to take on any more ratio punishment. And the guy with the worst ERA among qualified hitters, or worst WHIP, I forgot what it was, just really bad. It's Freddie Peralta. We're thinking, oh, he's coming to Tampa, they're gonna fix everything, and right away, and he gets bombarded.
Yep.
So he gets at the Athletics, home versus Baltimore. Like, what's your advice to people when they're considering Peralta this week? Say 15s and 12s, and what makes the help you make that decision? And where do you sort of draw the line versus other starters, including some of these guys we just mentioned?
Yeah, honestly, I hate to say this, but I think Freddie Peralta is unstartable at the current time. I mean, he looked horrible. He's getting hit hard. He's inefficient. He doesn't go deep into games, and he struggles, I think, even to get to 5 innings lately. Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at Freddie Peralta's game log, and in his last 6 starts, he's only gotten through 5 innings once.
Wow.
So yeah, I mean, I just think he's a mess. I think if given his track record of strong performance and the Rays and their skill with pitchers, I unless you really needed the roster spot, I would hold him and give them a chance to kind of work with him a little bit. But it's kind of tough. His first start for them was at Colorado, but I'm nervous about throwing Peralta now if I'm trying to protect ratios.
I am too. It's a tough spot to be in. The one thing to immediately separate yourself from is the fact that he owes you anything, or that he's an early draft capital player.
Yeah.
This just all has to be thrown out the window. And think of terms of this week, what can help you? What are the alternatives? You feel safer with a Wisniewski or Elder? I think I might. I would probably pick them up and start them over him, but not drop him. He's just an interesting case because you're looking at everything from his velocity, his pitch mix. None of that has really changed. He's still a K per 9 guy for the most part. Walk rate's 9% as it always was. Maybe lower fly ball rate, but just he's just getting drilled. I mean, it's almost a 5.5 ERA through 23 starts so far. If you're looking at peripherals like XFIP and Sierra, it's a run lower, but it's still over 4. This isn't the same guy. Maybe he's hurt. Maybe just something's broken. Sometimes we don't know. We never find out, or sometimes we find out after the season that he's been hurt.
Yeah, and I mean, the 5.37 ERA sounds bad, but in reality, I think the 1.52 WHIP is even worse. I mean, that's just deadly for ratio. So yeah, I don't think I would start him right now. It's kind of mind-boggling, but I think you made the right point. Like, don't think about draft cost at this point in the season. I mean, just go with the hot hand. Go with the players who look good.
Bobby Brendler jumped into FTN subscriber, jumped into the show a little late. May have missed our Mitch Bratt discussion. But between him, Phillips, and Alvarez, Washington's Alvarez is he's kind of getting screwed. Like good starts in the minors and good starts in the majors, not always 5 innings, and then got demoted. Now he's back up. They DFA'd Zach Littell, good riddance, and so Alvarez is going to get the Mets next week, and then Phillips is on the Marlins. Phillips lines up for Pittsburgh at home. And then we already talked about Bratt, home versus Colorado, might get 2, but I think even just 1 start, I'd probably go Bratt.
Yep.
Then Alvarez and Phillips.
Yeah, I would go Bratt there. Yeah, and it's kind of and maybe hope that Soroka's back so you don't have to make that Atlanta start, but you can't really count on that. I'd be comfortable throwing Alvarez at the Mets right now. He's got good stuff. I mean, he struggles to get to 5 innings, but I think he's capable of doing so. And yeah, I mean, he's at the Mets this week and he's at Texas the following week. I'd be tempted by that.
There's another guy I forgot to mention, and he's a whipping boy for me. I've beaten him up in articles before, and almost in a way beaten up, talking smack to high stakes fantasy managers who are probably better than me at this, who seem to love Jake Irvin. Maybe it's the same thing with like Dean Kramer, where people are just okay with a 4 to 4.3 ERA guy, but just sometimes can maybe sneak in a win, get some Ks. But I'm like team never Jake Irvin, and I still, of course, as giving fantasy analysis and putting bids, I have to be reasonable, right? So if I think home Chicago at Mets is worth a couple of dollars, then I would put that. I haven't gotten to that point yet where I've put bid ranges amounts in there, but I'm like a never Jake Irvin fan. I mean, where's the disconnect between me and likely sharper high stakes owners?
I'm on your side on this one.
Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, his strikeout rate is up, but it's only, it was pretty weak last year, so now it's taken a step up, but he still gets rocked. He's still, I'm just looking. I just pulled him up. Almost a 44% hard hit rate allowed, over a 13% barrel rate allowed. No thanks. The other thing with Alvarez, just going back a second, his last start, he looked pretty good against Philly on the road, and he got into the seventh inning. So he is capable of going 5. I will say several of his prior starts did not. In fact, most of his prior starts, he did not get to 5 innings, but he's at least capable of it.
Yeah, there's another guy I forgot since we're on it. We'll be wrapping up soon, but Jameson Taillon, who was the home run per 9 major league leader, it might still be. He just doesn't have enough innings to actually have allowed the most home runs, but he's up there. I think he's like top 5 in home runs allowed, despite like 50 less innings, fewer innings pitched. He's going to get Boston and the Yankees at home. For me, without digging into it too much or making assumptions of shifting to Toronto where he's already made a start, I'm probably out on that. I don't know, where are you at with Taillon?
Yeah, I'd be out too. The Yankees are not a scary matchup right now, so I wouldn't necessarily avoid the Yankees. The Red Sox are hitting really well, as we discussed, and that I do think is a tough matchup. I don't know, Taillon put together, probably overachieved the last 2 years, 24 and 25, and had sub 4 ERAs with very good whips, even without much of a strikeout rate. But this year he's just been getting hammered, and his ratios are horrible. Wasn't pitching deep into games, and it's not like he's a young guy and going to Toronto. They changed him. I mean, he's an experienced vet. Maybe there was a slight change or modification of his pitch mix, but I'm skeptical that I'm not. I guess I'll say it this way: I'm not ready to write off half a season of horrible performance based on one decent start.
Yes, I agree with you there. Wrapping up with looking ahead to next week for the hitters, we won't get too deep, but as far as we talked about the 3 shortstops, the rookies and 15 teamers that will be sought after, but there are a few, I think about 8 teams or so that have 7 games next week. It's not one of those, when I'm putting together the matchup analysis for the week, and sometimes there's a week that just stands out for you where it's really good teams or teams that have lots of FAAB options they're going to Cincy, Colorado, Sacramento, and this isn't really one of those weeks, but there is one set of matchups that stand out. Unfortunately and ironically, it's a team where it's tough to get excited about their FAAB options, and that's the Texas Rangers. They're going to get 4 at the Angels, 3 at Sacramento against the A's. So they have the best matchup on paper, but Wyatt Langford's rostered, as is Corey Seager and Brandon Nimmo and Jake Berger and Ezekiel Duran for the most part, and that doesn't leave a lot of meat on the bone. Jock Peterson would be a good stream, but the lefty-righty thing is a thing. He doesn't play against lefties, And as of now, he's likely to get 3 of 7 lefties, so he'll probably just play 4 games. And then after that, it's like, Evan Carter, I know he started against the lefty, but he was hitting ninth. They're just short on outfielders. And then it's just like Justin Foscue, Cam Cauley, Alejandro Osuna. Is there anything here worth pursuing? And do we go down the Evan Carter rabbit hole again?
No, or at least I don't. Yeah, it's tough. And I have Carter, I think, still floating around one of my teams. I got to drop him. He just isn't doing anything. Um, yeah, it's tough. I think if Jock Peterson's available, the first half of the week is appealing. It's 4 games, one lefty, 3 righties at the Angels, who have a lousy pitching staff. It's a pretty good park, and there's the Jock Peterson of 2 years ago. I mean, he's hitting really well now. So I don't, especially in OCs, but in main events or 15-team leagues too. I don't think you necessarily just look at it on a week basis. I think you could really break it up into scoring periods. That at the Athletics right now, they're lined up for 2 lefties, 1 righty, which makes it tough for Jock to play. But come Wednesday or Thursday, maybe that changes, and maybe he's facing 2 righties. But if there's a really good half week, I think it's worth doing. I mean, on some of my 15 teams this past week, they didn't do much for me, but I picked up Palacios going to Colorado, and I think you can make these moves even for half weeks.
Yeah, yeah. Jock Peterson, if you don't have that spot held down by a utility only guy, then definitely I think he's worth going after here. Other than that, no, I'm not going to have Evan Carter listed for a very, very high amount. He could steal some bases. It's possible.
Yeah, that's a good point, Vlad. Too. I think if you're really prioritizing stolen bases, then yeah, Carter gets 3 starts against the Angels. I think that probably is worth playing. If you're not prioritizing stolen bases, then I think you could pass on them.
Last question there on this side of things with the Angels. Do you see Logan O'Hoppe getting called up by the Rangers? I mean, they have Elias Diaz there now and Austin Wynns, and then Danny Jansen's been out for quite a while. Kyle Higashioka's on the IL. Since being called up, O'Hoppe hasn't been doing all that much. He's like 5 for 24 in 5 games. He's got 3 doubles, no home runs. But if say he got the call on the weekend and you really need to stream a catcher, listen, I've been wrong before about O'Hoppe, maybe 17 times. So hey, why not jump back on that bandwagon?
Yeah, it might be time to let him go, Vlad. I don't know.
Let it go.
Yeah, from what I read, all the trade deadline analyses, give the Rangers credit. I think they got a great deal. I mean, they got O'Hoppe for basically nothing, and I think that's a really good trade that they made. But when they immediately traded for him and then demoted him, despite not being strong at catcher, to me it was kind of like, hey, we got this guy. This is a long-term play. Let's bring him back to AAA. Let's take the pressure off him. Let's get him right for next year. I mean, I think I have more faith that he'll be their number 1 catcher going into next season than I do about them bringing him up this year. I mean, obviously, if there's an injury or he starts crushing the ball, that could change. I mean, if they're still in contention and he has a strong August, I could see them calling him up in September and running with it. But I think this was a long-term acquisition for them.
Yep, that makes sense. I don't have anything else as far as the hitters right now. I'm gonna after we're done here, I'm gonna dive in and get to my usual Friday work and get everybody ready for FAAB. So later today, I'll have the bid range tables up for 15 teamers and 12 teamers, and then the article come out on Saturday. But yeah, Mike, good luck to your Yankees. I think you guys can pull off the division.
I don't know. They are not the same team without Judge, and obviously they're missing Bellinger too. But if I guess the story is if they get these guys back and can stay in the playoffs, they could roll out Schlittler, Freed, and Cole, Rodon. So
Nasty.
they could be formidable in the playoffs, but they're just sputtering now. So unless they need Judge and Bellinger back, and they definitely need to get the offense going. But they could be formidable, especially in the weakened American League. They could be good in October.
100%. Never ever count out the New York Yankees.
Nope.
So for Mike Mager, I'm Vlad Sedler. Hope you enjoyed this episode, and we will talk to you next week here. Oh, I'm sorry, Mike. Do you have anything else?
No, I just a whole bunch of comments in the chat. Just wanted to thank folks for all the comments. Apologies, they were coming in fast and furious, and I can only do one thing at once.
Oh, that's okay. That's all.
Sorry,
we shout out Uncle Ted as always. He's got a lot of comments. He likes recap. He likes Ty Madden, and
yeah, no, I agree.
Andy Rodriguez is mustard.
Yeah, no, Andy Rodriguez has been awesome. If folks, he's probably not available anywhere. Maybe he's floating around in the 12. If people haven't been watching, he's playing very well, and he can get you some stolen bases from the catcher position. So yeah, I just apologies, didn't have a chance to react to too many of them, but saw them as they were coming in, and I agreed with many of them. Not all, but many.
Appreciate you, everybody. Thank you for joining us today. Good luck this weekend and everything, and may your teams do well. May you win those bids by $1 for Mike Mager. I'm Vlad Sedler. This is the FTN Fantasy Baseball Podcast live. We'll talk to you next week.
Thanks.